Good morning. I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 16, joined by Blake Lovell and Max Barr, also of Southeastern 16. We are going to talk about 4 SEC games played last night. Auburn beat Kent State. Tennessee blew out Montana. Arkansas had an interesting game with Troy, but separated and won that going away in the second half. And Vanderbilt beat Cal in Nashville. We'll hit on maybe a couple of games on Thursday night at the end here. But I guess let's start, Blake, with Arkansas. Kind of a little bit of a nail-biting first half for John Calipari and company. Big Z came to play. I'll start with you. Your thoughts on the Razorbacks, what you saw last night, maybe where they are as a program, because it feels like it's taken a little time for this to come together potentially.
Really starting with the whole needling part of this whole thing, Chris. You're trying to get the controversy going at 8:30 a.m. in Fayetteville, Arkansas. After Auburn and Tennessee just dominate their opponents. We're going to start with all the controversy. I mean, there's really no controversy. Here's what I think we should do, okay? I think instead of me telling you what I think about Arkansas to start this conversation, I think there's someone else who can do this much better than I can when it comes to giving his thoughts on this matter. So, without any further ado, let's go back to our trusted visual here that we've liked to use through a couple games, and that is John Calipari's comments on this. So, this is from Corey Stewart on Twitter/X. 1 minute of John Calipari discussing the Troy game with absolutely no context. So, let's lead off here if we would like to.
So you could go
ahead and make it full screen, too.
Stop. It was a 3-point game.
Hold on a second, Max. I have no idea how to do that. So
you just the little bottom right of the video,
right?
Little expansion buddy on the video. Yep, there you go. There you go. Nice.
Okay. All right, so let's start over, everyone. This is why we don't let me handle these. Why Max should be in charge of this. But Max is over here complaining about how he can't get things to work. He
can't get the audio.
All right, here we go. Let's start over.
So you could go up, back up. Stop. It was a 3-point game. But if you got guys banging threes, whoa, shoot a quick three with 2 minutes to go, drive the wrong way.
That's like me
or
getting
at
Chris
the buzzer, I'll foul him. How about that? How do you massage the ball?
What?
With our hands below our knees.
What did he say?
Oh, no.
It's ball game.
It's going in a bad direction.
Because you got 3 guys on you. So don't try to shoot it. Just boom, boom, let it go. Do they always ask all these questions? I'm okay.
We don't get you that often. So when
Bob
we
Holt.
get you, we got to make it count.
I don't even know who our next opponent is. Yes, Bob. So you could go up, back up. Stop.
All right.
It was a 3-point.
Okay. There you go. There you have it.
Oh, man.
So I can't really follow that, but I do appreciate everyone who puts these together, though. They appreciate it. Look, we're not, we're having fun here because, I mean, I think these are great, and I think everyone likes to have fun with these because there's no one like Cal when it comes to the post-game press conference. So, yeah, I mean, this game, yeah, it wasn't exactly what you probably wanted to see in terms of just complete smooth play. I mean, Arkansas had 10 points with 10 points with their 11 minutes of the game, 12 minutes of the game. They only had 10 points. Troy was up. I mean, they never were up big. But, I mean, you're at least wondering, okay, we're not really scoring the ball very much here. They finished with 65 points, which, is not a ton. And I think it goes back to some of the things we've already talked about. For starters, I think Troy's an interesting team. I think Scott Cross is a good coach. I mean, they're not a bad team. Let's also note that. But I'm not looking at the comments right now, so you guys can react however you want on those. But I just think this is one where, Max, the one thing we talked about with Arkansas is if Jonas Adu is not on the floor, I just think it's a different team. And I'm not saying he's going to solve all their problems, but I just think that, to me, is someone they've got to have on the floor if they're going to win SEC games. He hasn't played a lot so far this season, as we know. which you're just going to assume is Max. You may have seen it. I don't know what he said about him after the game. Injury I know has been a factor with him. He's only played 20 minutes through 3 games this season combined. So, but yeah, I mean, they shot the 3 well. So, I mean, give them that, right? Like, that's the one thing we worried about. Big Z stepping out, making 6 of 7 from the perimeter. But, yeah, I mean, there's still some things that I think will have frustrated Arkansas fans through 3 games, and we'll see if they get better.
Yeah, so we did get a slight update. So Kyle said that Adu is about 75% along right now. And you can tell when he's out there. I mean, he's coming in, 15 minutes into the game, just trying to, he played 4 minutes total. He just doesn't look like himself out there. And then on my Twitter, there's a video of Brazil rolling his ankle. I'm not going to show it here because, I mean, that thing, it's not broken, but that was a nasty fall on his ankle.
Yeah.
And he didn't come back, I don't think. So
I don't think he did.
I don't know how bad that is, but he didn't come back. So, and then John L. Davis, I mean, still doesn't have his shot down. Still adds 5 rebounds, but not himself either. So, I mean, it's hard, Blake. It's hard to try to take conclusions from this team when, half the impact guys are all banged up. But I did like what I saw from Adu Thiero. Again, I keep ringing the bell for this guy. 19 points, 7 rebounds. My goodness. He's not even a breakout player anymore. He has already broken out, and he's legit.
Back to Adu for a moment. I mean, you could just look at the numbers. He's played, 17 minutes or whatever it's been so far, 20 minutes. And you can just tell, he's got an offensive rating of 41. He's shooting, 33% from the field. Like, it's clearly not Jonas Adu. It just always bewilders me how teams roll guys out there who are not 100% and then make the situation worse. Not only are you not getting good play, but you're pushing off the time that the guy could be healing to get better, to get back to what he is when he's well. And I don't know how much the Brazil injury changes that, but you look ahead at their schedule, and I feel like this is the time to I wouldn't even play him at this point. You got Pacific, Little Rock, Maryland Eastern Shore coming in the next 3 games. You don't have another game of note until you play Illinois on the 28th of November. Now, I don't know how much, again, the Brazil injury changes things, but I know what I'm doing if I'm Calipari. It's not playing Jonas Adu.
I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform, and your number one source for online betting. Sorry, we had to get our read in before the 8-minute mark, 7:59 on the dot. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. Largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, MMA, Max Barr, mustache shaving. It's all there, all kinds of odds. Head to BetOnline today. Get on the action, America's most trusted site. Online wagering, BetOnline. The game starts here. Continue.
You were up.
Oh, we're up? Like, we're going in order now? As if we have some kind of organization on here? You got to be kidding me. We never organize anything here at this place. But, yeah, I mean, again, until Jonas Adu is fully healthy, I reserve judgment on what Arkansas can be, but you still have some of the frustrations that lingered, I think, with Cal towards the end of Kentucky days. And, yeah, I mean, like Max said, I think Davis is certainly someone who is going to have to be a much bigger factor. We know injuries have played a role with him. So injuries have kind of been just a theme so far. And with the Brazil injury, those kind of things now, yeah, I mean, we've got to see how it plays out from here. And, I mean, as Chris mentioned, the schedule – we're not going to learn too much over the next week or so, but then after that, I mean, that's when, you start getting those kind of games where, all right, you play a big game against Illinois, you got Miami, Michigan, teams like that who are good enough to beat you. And, what did they learn from the Baylor game? Close game, had their opportunities, couldn't finish. So, yeah, I think they've got to figure some things out. And that, that's the thing too, right? When you start looking at teams like Arkansas, who don't have necessarily a ton of non-conference games on the schedule that are going to make a huge impact on their NCAA tournament resume. Unlike an Alabama or unlike an Arkansas or Auburn, these are, you got to start winning some of these games, right? Because you already dropped a Baylor game. So like when they do play in Illinois and Miami and Michigan and so forth, right? That's what we say. Like they've got to win these kind of games, because otherwise, then you're kind of in that spot we've seen a lot of SEC teams in going into conference play, where you got to win a lot of games just to have a good schedule or a good resume for the tournament. So.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more from Carter Knox over this next 3-game stretch here before we get into Illinois and Miami. 6'6", 220. Talking to JC Hoops in the offseason, he was real excited about him with his physicality, just looking like he's ready for the college game already, and just hasn't 0 for 4 in his past 2 games from both 2 and 3. So he's on a little shooting slump, but he's got the physicality to be here. He's just got to get his confidence down and see a few shots go in. So just things to look for over these next 3 games against, not the best competition. I'd like to see Knox get in there a little bit more.
Well, as Hog Barbecue says here too, like we're not knocking the defense, and you're right. I mean, the numbers are great so far. Yeah. But the fact is that the thing that with Cal that has always followed has just been the offensive approach, and I think that's going to be the one thing that people are picking apart this early in the season, because you kind of look at it, right? And like we said, it just hasn't been the smoothest to this point. But yes, like the defense is certainly a strength. I mean, there's no question. We talk about just the athleticism this team has, the length, those kind of things. And we mentioned like all the size they have in the front court, and then Adu Thero, like just what he brings defensively, no doubt. I mean, that's the strength of this team, but I think to be the complete package that they need to be if they're going to be a top 4 or 5 team in the SEC, I think just seeing more of that consistency offensively, which again, I think Adu's going to help them be even better defensively if they continue at this rate, but he's also going to help them offensively too, because we've seen him, we've seen his offensive game kind of evolve at Tennessee the past couple of years. And so I just think you have to keep that in mind right now with that. So
one luxury they've got, like if you are down Adu in Brazil, I don't care if you're Kansas, who you are, that's going to leave a mark. Now they've got, I know it's not, 1980s and 90s basketball where it's big wing point guard, but you do have to have some height. And they've got the obvious 2 beneficiaries of playing time are Big Z and are we calling him Thero now? Is that the official pronunciation?
Thero.
Okay. Anyway, those guys, they can occupy some space in the paint. And look back to your comment on defense, Blake. Defense was not the issue we were talking about coming the season. It was, can these guys shoot enough? That's shown up, and we can unpack that in a minute. But I think you do have a couple of guys who can play those roles. Now you're awfully thin at this point. Now again, 3 very winnable games coming up before the real ones start. But in the midst of that, Big Z goes out and hits 6 or 7 threes last night. Am I dreaming? I thought they said they wanted him shooting fewer threes and staying inside a little more. Did I invent that?
No, you didn't. That was said. I don't know what happened in between that and now.
If you can't score offensively, you better find something that works. And if it means Big Z stepping out and hitting 6 or 7 threes, then by God, that's what you better do. Because otherwise, if he doesn't hit 6 or 7 threes in this game, they're winning this one 50-49 or something, right? I mean, I'm half joking there, but you better take whatever you can get right now. So, yeah.
Big Z has had 2 games where he's had 6 threes, and then he had that game, the opener, where he had 3 threes. Other than that, he doesn't have any any more than 1. So he's either hitting every shot he takes, or he's only making 1.
See, I think this is opportunity. You get him some playing time that is not normally available to him. You do it when not a lot is at stake. And like if it all comes together and you get everybody healthy, you actually benefit from the injury. You're better on the other side. And again, if he shoots like that, he feels a big need that you've got.
Look, here's the thing. All right, and we'll wrap up Arkansas here. And I know
Yeah.
Matt's asking questions. Matt, you're my guy. But yes, we watched the Kentucky game. And yes, we did a show on it yesterday for, as Carlos says here, we talked about it for 45 minutes yesterday of a 56-minute show. So we are talking Arkansas right now because they played last night. We've already talked about the Cats. Go with other 13,000 people have watched us talk about the Cats so far. So go check it out, man. Go check it out. But what I was going to quickly finish on, if you look at Arkansas's scoring to this point, and I know there's going to be Arkansas fans coming in and say, man, you guys are just all over us for being 2-1. But we're really not. Like, I think you sense the frustration, again, just with, some of the things. And it's the same stuff we talked about coming into the season. If fans were going to be frustrated early, it's not the fact they're just 2-1. It's just the fact that there are some things that are leaving a lot to be desired, I think, specifically in terms of their offensive approach right now. But injuries played a factor, and you look at their scoring. Adu Thero averaging 17 points. Boogie's averaging 15. Big Z now averaging 11, which Max said. You kind of certainly factor in this game in particular. John L. Davis is averaging 10. And then it's like DJ Wagner's averaging 5. Brazil's averaging 5. Richmond's averaging 4. Knox is averaging 2. Adu's averaging 1 just because he hadn't played a lot. So you see, like, there's that big drop-off, right? And so that's not going to happen the rest of the season. Like, they're not going to be a team where you just have 4 guys who are averaging that, and then the next guy doesn't, averages 4 points or something. So it'll all balance out. We're not trying to overreact. We're just telling you what we've seen so far. And if you're trying to find that path for Arkansas to be the team that I, in particular, thought they could be, and we'll see if I, wind up being right or wrong. We know how that usually works. But, they've got to find a bit more of a rhythm on the offensive end of the floor, but also defense can help you on offense too. And so the more they stay consistent and get better defensively, which they're forcing turnovers, that'll make things easier on offense too, because that means easier shots. That means more transition type stuff, which I think is not the worst thing in the world for this team. As we said, they don't want to get caught in the half court against zone defenses and running plays. Like, that's just not what they're going to do. So you get your guys with speed and athleticism and size running the floor. That will also make things a bit better. So, I mean, they won by 16. Let's not lose our minds here, everyone. But this is what we do. We just try to find certain things that stand out this early, and you're not always going to find that in these kind of games. But I think with Arkansas so far, I think it's fair to look at the offense and start to try to see what the path forward looks like. So
we ready to hit another one. We've got Tennessee, Montana. We've got Vandy, Cal, Auburn, Kent State is the 3 games last night we haven't discussed yet.
Well, hold on. We haven't discussed Kentucky either. I'm just kidding, Matt. Matt, come on. We know that okay? Don't ever forget that.
What?
We know. All right, Matt. You're one of the originals here on the Southeastern 16 basketball live streams. We would never treat you like that. We know you watch the games. We know we watch the games. So,
hey, Chris, there's a fan club.
I sent
believe
you the text last night. I presume
you did.
Read it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
Before we get to Vanderbilt, can we just please talk about the 2 top 10 teams before people get mad at us before we get to the Commodores?
We are going to talk about a top 10 team.
Is Vanderbilt in the top 10?
I was just joking around.
All right. Let's quickly talk about Auburn, because usually we lead with the good stuff, which, again, not saying Arkansas was not the good stuff, but that's what people are talking about the most this morning, which is what we try to do here. But Auburn and Tennessee, Max, which one you want to start with first? I mean, take your pick here.
Well, that Auburn game was a little bit tricky for a second there down the second half when it was stretched out to like 22-6, first stretch of play there. And then Kent State just kind of, moseys their way all the way back into like 5. It's like, what the heck's going on here? And then what went on was out of halftime, there was like a bunch of technical free throws, then possession hits a 3, hits another 3, and you blink and the lead got, cut in half basically in a matter of like 3 possessions. So after that, Auburn settles in. Pettiford's gotta watch these fouls. That was my main thing that I took away from this game. I mean, great win. There's a lot of positives to talk about. But if I'm picking something that stands out to me, I was talking with a guy on Twitter about it last night also. Pettiford, 5 fouls, 3 fouls, 4 fouls. For a freshman guard, not that worried, but I'd like to see him get that in check because in big games they're gonna really need him, and you don't want to have him 4 fouls with 5 minutes left and he's playing a little bit scared. Just something to keep an eye on there. A little bit of a trend here through 3 games now.
Hudson and Howard didn't play last night. Bruce Pearl has been non-committal on whether they play again or not. This team is really deep. You go through something like that, I'll be very interested to see how long they sit in the doghouse, or are they just good enough they say, screw it. If you're causing that kind of a problem with the team, we got enough guys who can play. Otherwise, why bother? That's going to be interesting. And maybe it's just let's wait and see how they respond to being sat, and are they willing to buy into the team or not? That's what I would do. But
well, when Chaney Johnson's playing the way Chaney Johnson is playing, you're not really looking for many people to take his minutes right now. My goodness, he looks incredible.
Sorry, I'm updating a few things of ours. Yeah, I think with Auburn, I mean, like you said, Max, this game got a little close for comfort there at times. I don't think I ever felt like, they were going to lose. This is just, again, you're going to have stretches like this no matter how good you are. But, yeah, I mean, I thought this was kind of a game where you're coming off a big win, several days ago. But,
Yep.
You're coming off, again, biggest win of the season. And, could you have a little bit of those sort of moments where you're like, okay, well, let's just get through this game and on to the next one? Because, like we said, Auburn's another one of those teams where they start to look ahead, which, they get they don't play again until Monday. So they kind of don't play a lot, in terms of like they get off till Monday and then they don't play again until the following Monday when they start, the Maui Invitational. So, yeah, I mean, another win here. They win by 23, and it's easy to look up and say, well, we only won by 23, right? Because we had some stretches in there where we didn't feel like we played well, and you mentioned kind of the foul stuff. That stood out for sure in this game, but still, you just look at the lineup that they can support at any time, and I think the depth, I mean, even without the guys who didn't play, I mean, this is still one of the deepest teams out there, I think, in terms of just, the different matchups they can run in terms of just the rotation and everything, and so they're mixing and matching all these guys. And the Miles Kelly thing, right? Think about what we talked about with him to start that game 1. Well, he hasn't done a lot the last couple games, hasn't shot it anywhere near as well, but like he's still there in terms of like, okay, this is a guy who's still going to play a lot of minutes. They're still going to try to get him open shots, and once those shots kind of fall, maybe not to the level it did in the first game, but like if he's knocking down 3 or 4 threes a game, something like that, that's only going to add to, their offensive ability here. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to add on this one. I think it's just, Auburn is very deep, and I think the way that they can rotate their guards specifically and those kind of things, I mean, even the front court, though, right? I mean, you just think about, the Chaney Johnson breakout and everything we've talked about. Yeah, what's really not to like about Auburn right now? I just think they're one of the more complete teams out there that I've seen so far. So
Chaney hit a few threes too. He was struggling the first 2 games from 3. If he can start doing that also, that opens up things on the inside for Broom more. I did not see. I was watching the game. Did you guys see Chad Baker eating French fries during the? What is going on at the Jungle? It's Cardwell, it's Baker Mazzara. Something's always happening when Auburn's playing at the Jungle.
I mean, anytime I get a chance to eat free fries, I'm gonna eat some fries. So, whether I'm playing a game or not. I mean, look, if someone was right here with some fries, I'd eat them right now. I mean, we get a sponsor for some fries, but shout out to Chad Baker Mazzara. Need some energy, Max. He's expending a lot of energy out there.
Hey, and Janai Broom, guys, I know it's early, but Janai Broom right now is number 1 in the nation in the Ken Palm Player of the Year awards. He's number one. So
Somebody voted him SEC Player of the Year. I don't remember who. There was a couple of us, I think, that did.
Yeah, you probably voted Ziegler.
Look, man, I was trying to help you out. You and I are the ones who voted Janai Broom, and Chris did not. I was trying to help you out, and you're throwing shade at me. Okay, so we're going to start dishing out the shade now. Okay, it's time. All right?
Yep.
Usually it's just me and Chris throwing the shade at each other, but now if we're
true.
bringing Max into it, then it's time. So, there you go. Anyways, any other thoughts on Auburn?
Got one game until
I just
the big
expect
ones
them to
start.
dominate these days. I
Yeah.
mean, the schedule coming up, I think we've talked about it, but at a minimum, they've got Iowa State, Duke, Ohio State, Purdue between now and Christmas, all top 15 Ken Pom teams, plus whatever you get in Maui. I mean, that could be UConn, Michigan State, UNC, Memphis, Colorado. I mean, it's what a schedule.
Meanwhile, in Knoxville, the Vols and Zakai Ziegler, first team All-SEC material, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, what do you say about the Vols? They came out, took care of business here against the Fighting Grizzlies of Montana. And, yeah, I mean, again, for Tennessee, it's one of those where coming off a big win at Louisville, they come out, as usual, very efficient here in terms of, how they play. I think just something else too. We talked about, gosh, who are we talking about? It all runs together now. Kentucky. So with Tennessee, this is a very unselfish group. We talked about Ziegler being the guy that sort of creates offensively for them, but I think as you watch this game last night, again, I think Tennessee's another one of those teams that you kind of have your guy, sort of similar to Lamont Butler for Kentucky, that's going to run the show in terms of being, sort of your point guard type guy that you feel like you can rely on both ends of the floor. Ziegler's that for Tennessee. You just have all these different parts that seem to fit pretty well together so far, Max. Like we were talking about, the additions of Milicic and Para, Chaz Lanier. You're just seeing all these new pieces added to the mix to replace, the faces that we were so used to seeing. Dalton Connect last year alone, but Josiah Jordan-James, Santiago Vescovi, those kind of guys. And so it's a new look Tennessee team, but still, yes, I have my fun, poking at you guys about Ziegler, but he's still that one sort of constant that can get them exactly, where they need to be on the same page. And I think so far, look at Milicic, this kind of game, goes 18 points, 10 rebounds, has 5 assists, Ziegler, 11 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, and you just keep going down the line. This is a team I think that you're starting to see, and Max's guy, Cam Carr here, 13 points in 15 minutes. I think, yeah, again, what do you necessarily take away from Montana game? I don't know, but boy, Tennessee defensively as good as we thought they would be, and I like what I'm seeing so far offensively, outside of maybe just a stretch or two here or there.
Yeah, I didn't watch the second half of this game, but Milicic looked fantastic in the first half. Might be wrong, but I think he had 14 at half or something like that. They were really playing through him, efficient, and he just wasn't making mistakes. Guys, Chaz Lanier is 10 of 17 from 3 for 58.8%. I know he's not, and I hate how we even have to compare him to Dalton Connect just because of how he got pinned into that role. So he's never going to live up. Who would ever live up to Dalton Connect? So I feel like we're not talking about him being this breakthrough guy that's huge for Kentucky's offense just because we're like, oh, they had Dalton Connect last year. I mean, this guy, for the spacing of this team, 10 of 50, you have a 60% three-point shooter right now that's opening things up for when they come off the bench, like JP Estrella to go 3 of 3 and not miss a shot. Cade Phillips doesn't miss a shot. Chaz Lanier is a lot more important than we're talking about, and I feel like he just kind of got the wrong end of the stick coming in right after Connect. But, man, he's been efficient.
I didn't get to see a minute of it, but just the box score, 2 things stand out. 24 of their 31 field goals were assisted, and they win the rebounding 38-17. I know that Montana's not a great rebounding team, but that's something you like to see in a game like that they played smart and they played hard. That seems to suggest that just from reading the box score.
Well, I mean,
also
again,
foul shots.
Tennessee's going to play Austin Peay on Sunday. They should win that game, although don't count out the Governors. Then they've got I was trying to figure out what's this thing called? The Continental Tire Baja Mar Championship in the Bahamas. I was trying to think of what the name of this thing was, but I just found it. So they're going to play Virginia to open things up next Thursday there. And then on Friday, they're either going to play Baylor or St. John's. Sign me up for either one of those two for Tennessee. I think those are fun matchups either way, no matter who they play of that group. So, and then Max has talked about, they've got the game against Syracuse in the SEC ACC Challenge. I think
Syracuse
they've got
is looking at.
Yeah, I mean the Jimmy V Classic. They got Miami in December. They still got the game, at Illinois. So yeah, I think Tennessee, another one of those teams, like by winning that game against Louisville, which again Louisville's still a work in progress. I think you start to look at this, and yeah, I mean they're really seemingly finding the chemistry early on with these new pieces. You mentioned Chaz Lanier. Yeah, he's not going to have to take as many shots as Dalton Connect did.
No.
And I think, like you said, if he can just be efficient, because now you're seeing these other guys step up, and that's good. I don't think they didn't want to put him in a position where he's going to have to take 20 shots a game. But I don't think he's going to have to on this team now that we kind of see how some of these things are playing out early. So, yeah, say all that to say that I think Tennessee's going to should be in a pretty good spot here as they go through non-conference play, because I think they got a chance to win a lot of their games here. That at Illinois is going to be an interesting one in mid-December. But for now, I'm curious to see how they come out of the Bahamas with those two games. I think it could certainly be 2 wins that just beefs up their resume even more. But yeah, looking good so far for the Vols. All right, now let's get to the Tyler Tanner fan club here, led by Chris Lee, acting president. Let's go find that. So.
Yeah, I was in the gym for that one last night in Mark Byington's press conference, and I thought he said it really well. I don't know what kind of team we have yet, and I think he's right because you've seen some unusual things. Like game 1, they have 1 turnover. Last night they have 18 assists. I mean, not 18 steals, which was nearly a school record. Like you didn't think of this team as a defensive team, but they're starting to find a little bit more of an identity there. And I think protecting the rim is going to be an issue outside of McLaughlin. But Tyler Tanner, really good-looking young player. I mean, I thought that was a kid that would not be able to find much of a role because of the experienced guards that they've got. And they had basically 4 different guys running at the point last night at different times. I thought he'd just get squeezed out on playing time with all the old guys they've got, but he's played so well. That he's making his way on the court. I mean, not a lot of times you see a 6-foot guard go up and get an offensive rebound off a miss and throw it down. He's got that kind of athleticism. So I think that's a guy to watch. I don't think we spend any time talking about Tyler Tanner before the season, but they're kind of interesting, and the threes aren't falling for them yet. I think just with the interior defense is going to be an issue. But Grant Huffman last night did a really good job on Cal's leading scorer, whose name escapes me. But there were some things to like last night. I don't know how good Cal is, but if you watch the game, you could at least see some things starting to maybe fall into place for them a little bit, Blake.
Isn't he their leading scorer?
No, it was the other kid. Stojakovic probably is after last
Blackshear.
night.
Blackshear, yeah, he came from Grand Canyon.
Kid.
Yeah, he was from Grand Canyon. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we have our fun with Vanderbilt. We were talking about let's not get too wild after the win over Maryland Eastern Shore and those kind of things. But yeah, I mean, like we said, if we were, and we were like here in the summer, Max and I, we talked about it a lot. If we were going to be very high on Vanderbilt this season, we were going to say they can be a sleeper team. It was really about saying, okay, they've actually got some guys that are not getting a lot of attention, but if you actually put all the parts together and it works out, like sure, they can be a team that maybe is in that bubble conversation from the NCAA tournament, something like that. And I think this was the kind of game where you look at it and say, all right, there's why. Like you can point at some of the things and say, all right, if they're doing some of these things well, like Chris said, force turnovers and get steals and get easy offense, even though they're not shooting it well right now. 342nd nationally, I think. in 3-point percentage. That's going to have to improve, and I think the defense is still going to be something to watch when they start playing better teams. But for now, I mean, you can still, again, look at the emergence of a Tyler Tanner, look at what Jason Edwards, we mentioned him coming into the season. He was someone that I think, scoring-wise, that they need him to score. McLaughlin has been pretty rock solid to this point. The kind of role that Hogarth's going to play on this team, and they just keep going down the line. So, yeah, I mean, I'm still optimistic. We've gone back and forth on them, Max, and I don't want to go too far either direction just after 3 games. But you can certainly see that if they are going to have a successful season, you can start to see some of the reasons why that could be so far.
Yeah, and excuse me, one thing I don't want to put too much into any analytics at the beginning of the season, so I'm not going to say the rankings, but this team's ball handling and steals are at the top of the nation right now when it comes to taking care of the ball, not turning it over, and then also obviously defensively stealing the ball. They've been fantastic. I know the competition hasn't been the best. I'm pretty sure Cal is now the lowest ranked high major team on KenPom. I'm pretty sure they weren't last night, but now they are. Poor Boston College got okay. I'm going down the wrong path.
Well, and they didn't have their head coach either, so it's kind of a bad deal for Cal there. But
yeah, rough position for Cal. But
ACC
back to Vandy,
Cal, that is. Don't forget,
look at
they're
some
not
of
in
the
the Pac-12.
steals.
They're in the ACC.
It's ridiculous.
We're not ridiculous.
Yeah, we could go a whole nother 30 minutes on this. But the steals: Tyler Tanner, Edwards, Hogarth, Grant Huffman with 4 steals last night. You got, is it Chris Manon or Mannon? Chris,
I think it's Magnon.
Magnon.
So pick one of the 3.
Like
just
Ezra.
any of those 3 pronunciations. Use all 3 of them. So there you go.
You're going to me for pronunciations?
Yeah, don't.
You're
As
the
Sam
Vandy
said
guy.
earlier, don't do that. So
No.
yeah.
Anyways, he hasn't really had his steal numbers all that high so far, and he's been a top 5 steal guy in the nation the last 3 years. He was actually number 1 in the nation in steal rate in 23 and 22 at Cornell, was Chris Magnon. So, I mean, very underrated defensively in the backcourt. They're going to be nasty in the backcourt. Not going to be an easy, just a walk in the park. Those guys are frisky.
Does anybody in this league have more guys who played more minutes at point guard than Vanderbilt?
They have an entire roster of point guards. So that's
jokes
cheating.
aside, yes, I know. If you haven't seen Vanderbilt's roster, they literally list every one of them as a point guard. Spoiler alert: that's not exactly how it goes down on game day, but
it's not what I've seen. I see 5 point guards on the floor at the same time. I know what you're watching.
I mean, they did play 4 last night. Now, I'm going to see if Edwards, if KenPom has him running the point. They had him kind of as a combo guard last year, but Edwards at North Texas ran the point for them some. Of course, Hogarth was Michigan State's primary point guard. Grant Huffman was Davidson's primary point guard. And now you've got Tanner running some of it too. So
Interesting.
It's getting a little spicy in the chat.
I haven't looked at the chat.
I'm
looking at Vanderbilt's schedule because when do we start to really, again, see kind of what this team can be? And by the way, the reason I brought up the Cal ACC thing was because I just realized they play at USC on Sunday, and I'm like, man, that's really early for a conference game. Then I'm like, oh yeah, that's not a conference game anymore. So that's not a conference game at USC. But anyways, back to Vanderbilt. So they've got the Charleston thing. They play Jackson State on Saturday. They'll win that game. Although I say that, remember, Jackson State did beat Missouri last year in non-conference play. But they start with Nevada next Thursday, and then it's either Seton Hall or VCU, which didn't Seton Hall. Who they lose to last night?
That's 2 in a row.
Yeah, they haven't been great. So
They have not been good.
So it's VCU, Seton Hall there on that side. Then Miami, Jim Larinaga's team, they're going to play every team in the SEC maybe in non-conference play, depending on how this thing pans out, because here they are again popping up in the Charleston Classic here. Isn't this the right one? Wait a minute. Am I looking at the right one here? Yeah.
That's the right one. Yeah.
Sorry, it says, I'm looking on their website. It says here's the 2023 bracket, but these are the teams that are in it this year. So Miami, Drake, Oklahoma State, and FAU. So, hey, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say Vanderbilt's going to win this thing, but I can see a path if they play well, based on the competition. So, I can certainly see a path for the Commodores there, but we'll see how it unfolds.
Yeah, Nevada will be a little bit of a litmus test for them. That'll be their opener. That'll be the best team they've played to date.
Oh, I don't think a little bit. I think it will be. I think Nevada's pretty good. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was Wednesday's action. Not to be confused with Tuesday's action, where Kentucky played and beat Duke. If you want to watch that, we talked about that plenty on Wednesday. So join 13,000 other people who have also joined in on that one. The Kentucky fans just bringing it. They're excited. They're optimistic. They're all in. Mark Pope. The faith is back in Lexington.
What do we got? Looking ahead here, we got some great games on Friday. Like, great games.
We got Alabama, Purdue,
A&M, Ohio State,
Florida State, Georgia Tech. Is that right?
Ooh, yep.
Which I'm not saying that necessarily going to be a great game. Georgia Tech has struggled a little bit, as we know, but yeah. But we're going to do as usual. We got the previews coming up for the two big games: Alabama, Purdue, Texas A&M, Ohio State. Those will be up either today or tomorrow. And LSU at Kansas State tonight. So if everyone thinks that we've been overlooking LSU, if they win tonight, we're moving them up in the power rankings next week. So
the Cam Carter game.
Who else plays tonight? Somebody else plays tonight. Missouri.
Missouri.
Oh, boy.
Against Mississippi Valley State.
Should I do what I did the other night again? We'll find out.
The Delta Devils.
I didn't reveal my bet the other night on the Missouri Eastern Washington game. I'm going to be a little more hesitant.
If you do that again with Mississippi Valley State, I'm going to have your sanity questioned.
I may have to have my account revoked if I make that same bet that I did with Missouri Eastern Washington. So I might withhold any. I may save that for the NFL slate on Sunday. I need to get some money back. So, anyways, there you go. All right.
All righty.
Congratulations.
On what?
Just congratulating everyone on a victory last night in SEC.
That's true.
It's not always every night we get to
we
talk
don't
about
get that often.
6-0 stacked with 4-0, 2 nights in a row. So 10-0.
Oh, great, Chris. Great. You
All right,
had to
now
go
we're
that
done.
far
We're
on
done.
a night that Missouri plays Mississippi Valley State. Now I'm going to be sitting here chewing my nails off in this game. But
Buddy, if they lose to Mississippi Valley State, I don't know.
No, we're not even going to go there.
Don't say it.
Yeah.
Don't even say anything. Just don't. All right? Just stop.
Don't
Let's
even
move on.
put that out there.
What is the nickname of Mississippi
Let's
Valley
move
State?
on.
Like something weird.
They're the Delta Devils.
There you go. Max, you would know.
You don't know that they're the Delta Devils?
I was going to say the Boll Weevils, but that didn't feel right.
All right.
Cut. Anyway, I think this show has run its course today.
No, I think about 20 minutes ago.
Probably.
Back Friday night, Blake?
Oh, yeah. So just as a note, we will – I have no idea when we're going to do this again. Probably, yeah, because there's big games on Friday. So my guess is we'll probably do something Friday night after close to maybe towards the end of Texas A&M Ohio State.
Yep.
Is my guess. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Allegedly, we haven't talked about Kentucky yet.
No.
All right. Well, we'll talk Kentucky again very soon. I can promise you. And everybody else, we're here to cover SEC basketball wall to wall. Got football stuff coming up. Got a baseball show we're recording today.
All right.
To talk about signing classes, fall scrimmages, whatever there is to talk about in baseball. I'm just trying to keep up here. Anyway, for Max Barr, Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching Southeastern 16 presented by BetOnline.